my name is Stacia, and I'm just a girl on the internet that likes to talk about movies. And this week I'm going to do the 1969 coming-of-age film, The Learning Tree. The story of The Learning Tree is set in 1920s Kansas. It goes over less than a year in the life of a Black 14, 15-year-old teenager named Newt, and the events that happen in his life that sort of forces him into early manhood. It takes place in the fictional town of Cherokee Flats, Kansas. And it does show you all types of backgrounds of 1920s Kansas, especially in very rural Kansas. It was a interracial society then. The whites and blacks did, in those small communities, live and work together. The Learning Tree is actually a significant and historical film. It was written and directed by Gordon Parks, who is a Black man. He is a foremost artist, author, journalist, photographer who wrote a semi-autobiographical novel called The Learning Tree, based on his own upbringing in Kansas during the 1920s. And events surrounding that happened in that area. He released the novel in the early 60s. Gordon Parks' self was from Fort Scott, Kansas, and he fictionalizes the name to Cherokee Flats. A lot of this movie, especially a lot of the outdoor scenes, are actually filmed in Fort Scott, Kansas, and the interior scenes are filmed on the back lot of Warner Brothers Studios. This film stars Kyle Johnson in the main character of Newt. He was an up-and-coming young actor, and before this movie, his credits largely are guest spots on TV shows of the era. Probably the most notable thing about him at that time was he is the son of Nichelle Nichols, Uhura from Star Trek. And no, this movie didn't make him a huge star or anything. He largely goes on to do little small guest spots, appear in some movies after this, and pretty much retires from acting in the mid-70s. The other kid in the film that was Newt's friend at the beginning, Marcus, who largely feels betrayed by Newt in the movie, was played by Clarke. And this was his first movie. And pretty much the same line he does a little bit here and there after this movie, and then just retires from acting. The cast also has Estelle Evans as Newt's mother, Sarah, and just as a side note, she was Esther Rule's sister in real life from Good Times. Now, this being based on Gordon Parks' own semi-autobiographical novel, the fact that he wrote it and directed it, the movie doesn't steer far off from the book itself, except combining some of the characters that appear in the book, basically for time elements and limitations in film. The Book of the Learning Tree was bought by Warner Brothers and Seven Arts and became the first film directed and written by a Black person to come from a major American film studio. Gordon Parks had said at the time, until a few years ago, Blacks didn't even dream about getting into the movies, except as actors. It was a closed world, sealed off by discrimination. Ken Hyman, the president of Seven Arts, liked my book and knew his photography. And Gordon Parks is a brilliant photographer. You should really check out his photographic work. We had a meeting that lasted 15 minutes, and he gave me the job of directing The Learning Tree. All those years of prejudice and bigotry were broken down in 15 minutes. And of course, quoting Gordon Parks, I don't know if that is exactly true. But like I said, this is filmed on location in Fort Scott, Kansas in the fall of 1968. And the production of it was scheduled to last about 3 months. And Fort Scott being where Gordon Parks grew up. Also, Kyle Johnson noted that when the production began, there was an actual circus in town. As a result, the circus scenes that are in the film are the actual circus that was in town. And it does include actual citizens from Fort Scott from the late 60s. And at the time that The Learning Tree was released, it did decent at the box office. It got decent reviews. It is a good movie to watch. There are flaws in it. It's Gordon Parks' first movie. The acting is a little stilted. The dialogue and everything is not terrible, but not the best. But in the end, it is a very enjoyable movie to watch. The story is engaging. And the most interesting thing about it is shot, produced, and filmed by Black people, and a story about a Black man written by a Black man, which is important because, as I've heard Denzel Washington say, it's not racial, it's cultural. There are certain things in cultures, in everybody's culture, where you're making art about that culture. You already have an understanding how some things go. Instead of believing that you do, you know how things work. You don't have to go, well, I think this is the way it should go if I were in this situation, if you know what I mean. And also significant about the movie is the production had the largest contingent of African-American crew members up to that time, with 12 of them in all. The Hollywood unions at that time were very opposed to this also, and the unions at that time were very white. But Gordon Parks also received enormous cooperation from Warner Brothers Studios itself. The film itself looks beautiful, and it still looks beautiful today. When you look at it, it's photographed and framed very well. The photography, the cinematographer on this movie, it was done by Bernard Guffey, who had won an Oscar for Bonnie and Clyde just a couple of years before this movie. And he also won in the 1950s for From Here to Eternity. And the movie The Learning Tree itself was among the first group of 25 films in 1989 when they created the National Film Registry to be inducted because of its cultural and artistic importance. And it is a very important movie of American cinema. And yes, if you're thinking Gordon Parks sounds familiar, but I'm not familiar with his photography or his books or anything like that, what he is most famous for is being the director of Shaft. But besides Shaft and his film work, I do encourage you to look up the man Gordon Parks. He is a fascinating, interesting character of American history. Was an acclaimed photographer for Life magazine from the late 40s to the 60s. And as his second act, he got into the film business. Like I said, he also wrote The Learning Tree as a novel in the early 60s as well. He's also a composer and a poet. Just a really, really, really fascinating guy. But if you've never seen The Learning Tree, I do encourage you to see it. It is an important film in cinema history. Like I said, it is enjoyable to this day. It is beautifully photographed. The acting is workable. It's not the best acting. Some of the writing and dialogue is a little stilted, but still a thoroughly enjoyable and engaging film. That is, like I said, important to American history, important to cinema history. But thank you again for watching this video. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment. It helps the engagement. It helps YouTube know that people like it and push it out. But thank you so much for joining me. I will see you next time. I love you all. Bye.